I think right now, especially experienced the emergence of AI, right? Technology has definitely caused everyone to pivot. Sometimes it's uncertain, and then sometimes we're excited about it. But the core of it for me and my business, and what I try to explain to clients, is you still want to have that human-centric aspect. So I think finding a balance of technology and that human aspect really is a perfect mix for immersive events. It's the perfect mix for people to engage and to connect. A lot of times, if you're attending a conference or a meeting, whereas it used to be a set agenda, now more so, people want to have liberty to create their own agendas, which introduces a lot in the wellness space, which introduces a lot in the corporate social responsibility initiatives to have a give back. So some of the principles that I live by is just really finding that balance of having that human connection, providing nostalgic moments in your meeting or events, as well as incorporating a sense of technology that can be explored and push the boundaries of curiosity.
Welcome to the Brand Brief podcast, where we discuss the latest trends and key strategies that are driving brand growth. This podcast is powered by Brand Method Media Group, and I'm your host, Kelly Kelly. Today's guest is Monica Jackson, Chief Experience Curator of Prissi Productions, LLC, a woman-owned event planning company based in Atlanta, Georgia, with a global reach specializing in turning bold ideas into exceptional, executed moments that align with your brand and business goals. Welcome to the show, Monica.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Amazing. So I always really just kind of love, in order to set context for the interview, kick it off with a walkthrough of how Prissi Productions has evolved from concept to becoming a well-recognized experiential marketing agency. So let's start there.
Yeah. So really just taking it back, I've had a hybrid career being an entrepreneur, also being in corporate. When I started on the entrepreneurial journey, I had a company that really specialized in social events. Amidst the film industry developing here in the Atlanta market, I got exposed into film and television, which really kind of shifted my pivot on how I wanted to brand my company. And I took it from social events to more brand activation, corporate social responsibility initiatives, and just created an immersive experience. So that just kind of kicked off the pivot and transitioning my business to answer the call and the demand of what was going on in the industry. And, we work across different business verticals. So what was going on in healthcare may be a little different than what's going on in health and beauty. But the premise of it all is that we wanted to create immersive experiences and really tap into the sentiment of what people were experiencing as they were attending a variety of different events, whether it be something personal or whether it be something through their job or just even career development, taking classes online, virtual, or in person. So that's where we really began to pivot for the demand of what was changing in our industry.
And that actually is a great segue into my next question. You have worked with so many different types of industries, luxury brands, beauty companies. Do you find you have to completely switch up your approach for different industries, or are there some universal truths about what makes people connect with a brand?
Absolutely. I think right now, especially experience the emergence of AI, right? Technology has definitely caused everyone to pivot. Sometimes it's uncertain, and then sometimes we're excited about it. But the core of it for me and my business, and what I try to explain to clients, is you still want to have that human-centric aspect. So I think finding a balance of technology and that human aspect really is a perfect mix for immersive events. It's the perfect mix for people to engage and to connect. A lot of times, if you're attending a conference or a meeting, whereas it used to be a set agenda, now more so, people want to have liberty to create their own agendas, which introduces a lot in the wellness space, which introduces a lot in the corporate social responsibility initiatives to have a give back. So Some of the principles that I live by is just really finding that balance of having that human connection, providing nostalgic moments in your meeting or events, as well as incorporating a sense of technology that can be explored and push the boundaries of curiosity. So just really having that sincere balance.
No, I think that's great. And I feel like, and you obviously know better than I feel like we're getting sort of the pendulum is swinging back to the need or the want for more in-person events that are rooted in experience, not just sort of your standard, okay, you show up. If it's a networking event, you show up, you exchange cards, you go home. If it's a conference, you show up, you listen to people, you go home. I feel like we are coming out of the isolation and we're ready to get back in person, but we do need something different.
Yes, and it really just ties back to human nature. Everybody thinks that connecting and networking is natural for everyone, and it's not.
It's
And
not.
as an event curator, I have to consider the entire audience. So you have introverts, you have extroverts, you have neurodivergent audience. And so how do you create programming that's encompassing of everybody? And that's just really having the knowledge of tapping into people's sentiment, what they're expecting to receive, how do people digest information, taking those wellness and mindful breaks in between, and then having an activation or activity that kind of prompts people to come outside of their shell. So I think that that's important that you consider your entire audience when you're doing your programming, because that's the only way that you're going to connect. If you just have a name badge and don't give any guidance of, hey, you have a color coded name badge, and this means that you're a part of this group. And people ultimately want that belonging, but you have to have the programming and the experience to get people engaged. And so that's where it really becomes important to have a company such as ours that can create that experience, that can take just the basic and the fundamentals that go into every meeting or every event and elevate it with getting people engaged and finding their community within, a conference that may be 500, 5,000 people. How do you find belonging there? Well, you definitely have some commonality. So how can we tap into that? And that's our expertise, is really digging into that.
Yeah, no, I think that's amazing. I am I guess what they would refer to as a extroverted introvert. I know what I have to do for my job, but I don't necessarily, if it was left up to me, I would probably be a wallflower. And that surprises a lot of people. But I've, spent the last 20 years learning how to work a room and be who I need to be in the moment. But yes, if it was left up to me, I would probably be holding up the wall. So as I'm attending different events, and like you said, I'm picking up on some of the different integrations that cater to people like me where I'm at, like my natural state. The color coded stuff, the grouping together. Sometimes you attend an event and there are people that their specific role is to introduce you to people there, that type of thing. This is all new to me. I mean, 20 years ago, you were given a time and a place to show up and you showed up. And if you felt comfortable, great. If not, too bad. That's what it was. So it is refreshing to see the difference, the change in events.
Yeah, the landscape is certainly changing. You can look at the landscape of keynote addresses, right? They're coming out to vibe music. They have a dynamic stage presence. They have performers. Like, we're used to that. Even you think about your place of worship, nobody's wearing the choir robes and all that anymore. They
That's
have,
true.
you know, matching t-shirts, and they have projection mapping, and it's created jobs and opportunity for people. So I think the anticipation is there. So we need to be able to meet the anticipation with the return on the experience. And I talk about that a lot because we have the return on the investment, but we also have the return on the experience. And, emotions become memories, and then memories, in turn into the ROI. So it's just a combination of really tapping into the sentiment of people. There's an emergence of a lot of business coaches and different levels of coaches to teach people how to interact. It's like it's 2025. We would think that that would be something common nature, but really it isn't. people have their own way of communicating and their own personalities. And as creatives and event producers, we try to find ways to pull that out of people in a natural and comfortable way to get them to engage and then be able to share those memories.
Speaking of ROI, you have a very impressive track record in terms of being able to quantify the return on events in a way. And I think this is where some decision makers are inclined to not want to invest in this area because they can't see the ROI. And as marketers, we know, brand is brand and it's not always a linear attribution in the way that some of the other decision makers in the C-suite would like. But I would love for you to maybe just share to the audience, how do you, when it comes time to report after an event, how does that conversation happen? How are you communicating the ROI to the decision makers?
Sure. It really starts on the front end because when identifying your key performance indicators, you really need to ask the right questions to get the right answers, right? So many times you write a review or take a survey and it's just an open-ended question. Well, how was the event? Well, if you're anywhere more than 2 hours, you've had a million touch points, you've experienced all kind of messaging, branding, connecting. So I encourage clients, and what helps me to collect those metrics at the end is identifying what you really want to know. And that is not only just that people come, but what is the actual sentiment? So it's very important. I've been working with a lot of small businesses and larger businesses to start from the beginning. What are the key performance indicators that we need to ask and really tap into? Because if you just ask an open-ended question, people are most likely going to remember either one good thing or one bad thing. But what's the drop down to that? What caused that? So I think that that is very important. And then attaching those to each touch point. We know that during the event, there's just givens. There's going to be music, there's going to be food, there's going to be entertainment, but people forget about the front end and the back end. How were you greeted? Did someone know my name? Was my name spelled correctly? Did they remember something about me at the end? How was transportation? How was parking? Was it easily accessible? So all those things go into an event and all of those things tie into sentiment and all of those things tie into that customer journey. So it's important that you can capture that information along the way in very specific and concise question and answering and then feedback to be able to report there. So you do have the metrics because you can easily say 5,000 people showed up and it was a great event. But does that really quantify
Right.
that they had a great experience? Oh, I got 2,000 leads from that event. But were they your target market? And, how are you going to communicate? And so it goes beyond that because post event is just as important, right? Because that
Right.
is the return on the investment and the return on the experience. So again, in those KPIs, just identifying both the sentiment as well as the quantifiable information.
And like you said, establishing everybody being on the same page about what that means in the beginning. A good event could mean something different to you than maybe, the company putting on the event. Let's be very clear about what we say when we mean this, and then maybe we need to break that down further, like you said, from the beginning, from the greeting to the event. And for post, is there something in place too for the post process? Okay, that will help support the ROI of the event. So I think that's a really great point is managing expectations and being on the same page for sure about what constitutes, the KPI and specifics.
Absolutely. And I think also if you are doing an annual event, it's important to switch up that formula and that template. I've attended different, annual events as we all have. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, this, that, and is anticipating to happen. But you always have to have that wow factor I love any type of teasers. I love, I'm a person that has FOMO. So it's like, anything that can get me hyped and anticipating, putting those teasers out there. Change up your program. Do definitely push the boundaries of doing something different, new, and innovative. Sometimes it may work and sometimes it may not, but at least you gave it a try to do something different. So especially with annual events or events that roll over every quarter or every year, you really have to bring it because your guest and your target audience is already anticipating and predicting what you've done before. So you want to be able to bring that wow factor into your events to separate yourself and to keep engagement with your audience as well.
Awesome. So looking ahead, we're seeing experiential marketing tied very closely to corporate social responsibility and purpose-driven initiatives. Based on your extensive work in CSR activations and community impact programs, how do you see experiential marketing evolving, and how is Prissi Productions positioning itself to lead in this space?
Absolutely. That for me, again, when I wanted to pivot my company, that was something that was very personal and heartfelt for me because a lot of companies were doing it just to check the box, right? And they weren't walking the talk. And so for me, when I'm working with a client or a corporation or organization, it's just not a one-time event. It becomes a lifestyle. It becomes part of your culture of what you do day to day in the office. If you're going to talk about sustainability, how does that look from bottom to top? So I really encourage everyone to adopt it as a way of lifestyle. I know working with different HR departments, now they're giving paid time off to do volunteer work, which is amazing. And so being able to work with corporations beyond just philanthropy, I think it's really important that there's some hands-on initiatives. One, you're giving back to your community. Two, you're taking pride in working with disadvantaged communities in different capacities. And then three, being able to use that as leverage to show your market that how involved you are beyond just putting out a press release that okay, well we did this annual thing, but just living it really and it becoming a part of the culture. So for me, I look for opportunities to partner. I think one of the emerging trends that I really like to see is just partnering lifestyle with leadership, partnering lifestyle with community. So before, a lot of brands would only just align with certain brands, but now there's so much crossover because when you think about even your routine that you have each day, okay, I'm brushing my teeth while I'm toasting my bagel, while I'm listening to your podcast. Well, how do we bring all of those things together and have cross collaborations? So I think that that works really well in the CSR space. And what we do is bring and present those opportunities to corporations. We work with the military, we work with assisted living groups, we work with schools and universities. And just think about it. Say if you have an event, it could be a wedding, it could be a social event. What do you do with all the florals afterwards? It's great. Can you donate those to an assisting living home? Why throw all those beautiful florals in the trash? Say you have fabrications from an event production. What are you going to do with the textiles and all of the equipment that's left over? Can you donate that to a university or an art school? So there's a lot of things that you can do through events that is a give back that people just have to be creative about and be in tune and connection with the community on how to repurpose a lot of things that we use in events and then how we can give back in a physical way as well.
I think that's great. I've never thought about that. Of course, every, wedding I've left, it's like they're trying to make the guests take it all home. Like, take
Yes.
these flowers, and it's like you can only take so many, but I think that's such a great idea would be to repurpose it. But again, to your point, there's a process that would have to go around that. If you're going to donate to a senior facility, who's doing that? How is it being trained? You know what I mean? So it would take a little more upfront thought as part of the event planning process, but I think it's totally worth it, especially if you are looking at it from a corporate social responsibility lens and just adding on that as part of the process. Okay, we have the event, we have posts, and then we have the sustainability or whatever you want to call it, where someone is designated to take these florals, take these textiles, get them to the right people, that whole thing. So
Absolutely.
I think
But
that's
the
great.
CSR initiative has birth companies that do that. So,
Okay.
that's the whole trickle effect about society. Once you come up with a brainchild idea, then that creates a whole nother job or organization. So
Yep.
that's what we do when we're out networking. It's always intentional and purposeful to think about, okay, well, we're still a small business too, but there's a whole nother organization that can take on that, right? So we include that in our proposal
I
and
love that.
part of the pitch that there are people that can come and pick up the food. There are organizations that can pick up the florals and the textiles and the other materials. And so we partner with those companies that have the whole entire infrastructure to do that and can handle, your tax
That's
write-offs and
incredible.
all of that information. So it's just a matter of tapping into those resources. But when you work with a company such as our that is the value in it is that we have those resources and we have the whole plan laid out for that.
Wow, that's definitely a step above the rest, and that's incredible. So what's next for Prissy Productions? What do you guys have coming up this year, next year? What's kind of on the horizon for you all?
Well, we're so excited because we have a few things in our pipeline. And people are always like, what are you up to? Well, when you're working with the creative, we're up to all kinds of different
All the
things.
time.
But it's all interrelated. So, one, doing more podcasts such as this, which is an honor to get the word out there and really share people what our passion is. We've been doing a lot in the wellness space. So, we're working with some wellness coaches that started, with hybrid or virtual programs that now want to increase their audiences and take their wellness programs out of small buildings and now into larger spaces and out of the country. So stay tuned for that. We've got some wellness retreats that we're doing out of the country. And then also, like I said, with the CSR initiatives, we're working with different partners on a national level to really encourage companies to tap into the communities. In our current economic and political environment, there's different regions that, people think Americans don't want to travel to, or different states that they think that tourism is going to be lowered. So, as part of what we do in our initiatives is we make sure that we give back in the communities that we go to. So, if we are planning something in another country, in another state, how can we use local talent, local resources to give back to that economy? So that's part of our CSR programs as well, using local artisan, using local farmers, using local talent. And that ties into the return on investment when you can do things local. So you don't always have to pull somebody from LA or from New York. There's
Right.
great people in Knoxville, Tennessee. There's great people in Meridian, Mississippi. And it's just having those relationships to know and bringing that authentic culture and connection there. So yeah, so we have some great wellness initiatives. We have some CSR initiatives, and then we also do some things in the spirits industry. So we're working with some different brands in the wine and spirits industry. So we've got some good things going on. I'm excited. And hopefully some things in film and television production too, because we also do custom fabrications and props and design and styling as well.
So, well, that wraps today's show. Thank you to our incredible guest, Monica Jackson, Chief Experience Curator of Prissi Productions, LLC. We're going to have contact information for Prissi Productions, LLC in the show notes for anyone who is looking to work with them. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks.